These are 5 sleeper wide receivers that your league mates aren't smart enough to draft. Before we get into it, grab your energy drink, grab your coffee. We got a white monster. Take a sip and let's jump into it. Starting with Jahan Dotson, who was a major disappointment last year after coming off a strong, promising rookie season. But when you look back on it, Dotson was just in a horrible situation. The Commanders' offense was a complete disaster. They had a horrible offensive line. The coaching and play design was middle school, high school level. It was completely embarrassing. There was no rhythm. There was no flow to the offense at all. Sam Howell was okay, but he didn't have a lot to work with either. So you can just take year 2 for Dotson and just throw it out the window. But there's a lot to be excited about in year 3 for Dotson, which I think is going to be a breakout campaign. Curtis Samuel, who took a lot of work away from Dotson last year, is now gone to Buffalo. That opens up 91 vacated targets. We have a completely new coaching staff. Thank the Lord. Dan Quinn is now the head coach coming over from Dallas. New offensive coordinator is Cliff Kingsbury, who I really like. I think Kingsbury is going to bring a much better ecosystem and creative play design, along with a massive quarterback upgrade in 2nd overall pick, Jaden Daniels, who has been absolutely tearing it up at training camp. He already looks like a budding star. And don't forget, Dotson is a former 1st overall pick in 2022. He's still a young receiver. He was the 16th overall pick. He is very talented. Don't let last year discourage you from wanting to draft him this season. And I think Jahan Dotson fits Jaden Daniels' throwing style perfectly, which is throwing it deep. We know Dotson is a deep ball threat. And last year, Daniels led all of college football in deep ball passing grade. These two are going to go nuts, especially because Jahan Dotson is going to have the number 2 corner on him. McLaurin is going to get some of those double teams. He's going to get the best corner, leaving Dotson in a lot of advantageous positions. I think Jahan could absolutely explode this year. I think the offense is going to be much improved, but I think the defense still has a lot of work to do, which means they're probably going to be trailing in most games, forcing them to pass a ton, which is really good for Dotson. And you can get Jahan in round 14, 15, one of the last picks of your draft. I think he's an absolute steal and will easily outperform that round 14, 15 ADP. All right, to my next receiver, Xavier Legette, who, if you look at his college numbers, they're not going to blow you away. He didn't really break out until his 5th year in college, his super senior season, which isn't ideal. History probably doesn't support that Legette's going to be a very good NFL receiver. I beg to differ. He exploded in his final year in college. 71 catches, over 1,200 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns. I'm excited because of what I've seen from him with my own 2 eyes, which is he's a physical freak sitting at 6'3", 230 pounds, and he can fly as he ran a 4.39 40. I know you're not going to like this, but he reminds me a lot of A.J. Brown. Not saying he's going to have an AJB type of career, but when you turn on the tape, when you turn on the film, his playing style, he reminds me so much of him. I don't think Bryce Young was worthy of being the 1st overall pick. Clearly, he had a tough rookie year. CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson already look like better quarterbacks. But I do think he's a better quarterback than what we saw last year because he had 0 help on offense. He was in a terrible situation. Offensive line was horrendous. I mean, Adam Thielen was his number 1 target. Play calling was terrible. So I think it's going to be a much improved situation in Carolina this year with Deontay Johnson, Jonathan Brooks, Xavier Legette, Dave Canales taking over at head coach. He's going to be the play caller. This overall offense is going to get a boost. Do I think they're going to take this Houston Texans type of leap on offense? No, but I don't think they'll be the worst in the league. And Canales could potentially use Legette in that Mike Evans role this year where he's the downfield target. That's something that they desperately need that they don't really have right now. On a Carolina offense that's starving for playmakers, I think Deontay Johnson is the clear-cut wide receiver 1, but Legette could absolutely be the number 2 guy, lapping Adam Thielen, who's old at this point and doesn't really have much left in the tank. And you're spending a round 11-plus pick to get Legette, who I think has crazy upside if everything breaks his way. Bryce Young should be solid this year. Dave Canales is the quarterback whisperer. He rejuvenated Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield's careers. I really think he's going to help Young tremendously. This offense will be better. I think Legette is a big-time sleeper with crazy upside if everything clicks for him in year one. All right, to my next receiver, Davien Wix. I've been singing Wix's praise literally all offseason. This guy is going to be special. He's a route running technician, a route running savant. He was open on 55% of his routes against man coverage last year, which ranked first in the NFL. He can line up all over the field. He can win at all three levels. He had 2+ yards per route run last year, which is an indicator of a really good receiver. This is another guy, when you turn on the tape, he just looks like Davante Adams. I'm not saying he's going to, similar to Legette and A.J. Brown, not saying he's going to have a Davante Adams type of career, but he just moves very similar to Adams. It's kind of freaky, to be honest. On a Green Bay offense that is absolutely loaded, attached to an ascending quarterback, I think he's a superstar already in Jordan Love. But the argument against Wix is that the wide receiver room is terribly crowded, which it is. Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed. You even have a guy like Bo Melton, Malik Heath, two really young tight ends in Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave, two really good running backs in Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd, who's a pass-catching back. So it's an offense that's filled with talent, so it's kind of hard to see how Davien Wix is going to break out from all of those weapons around him. I get that. I understand that argument. But God forbid, we've seen guys like Christian Watson go down time and time again. I hope that's not the case this year, but what if Wix is just the best receiver on this team? I think that that's something that people aren't even considering. He could be their best outside weapon. Jaden Reed in the slot. Maybe Wix takes over that number 2 role on the outside opposite Christian Watson, kind of laps Romeo Doubs, which I think is very possible. I think it's going to be very hard for Green Bay to keep Wix off the field. I really do. And it's not like you're drafting this guy in round 5 or round 4 or round 3 where you need him to be this immediate superstar major contributor to your team. No, you're getting him in one of the last rounds in your draft. So when people are like, oh, I'm out on Wix because there's too much competition for targets, okay, you're drafting him last round 13, 14, 15. Like, these are all dart throw players, and Wix is just one of those guys that if the dart hits the bullseye, he could be a league winner for you. So I just think the situation that he's in terms of a really good quarterback, really good offense, Matt LaFleur is a brilliant play caller. I just don't see a world where he doesn't see the field a lot this year. And if he impresses, like, the Packers want to win football games. They're going to put their best guys on the field, even if he's only in his second year. So he is a guy you absolutely take a chance on who could be a difference maker for you down the stretch. To my next receiver, who's very controversial. A lot of people like to either hate him or love him, and that's Keon Coleman. Yes, his college career wasn't anything special outside of his 11 touchdowns last year, but he's a young, raw prospect. He's 21 years old. Yeah, okay, he has questionable separation skills. How many times do I have to hear that every single day on Twitter? We get it. He can't separate as good as he maybe should. But that doesn't mean that he can't improve in that area, especially considering he's 21. It's something that he can get better at, right? And he has the intangibles that you look for that you can't coach, that you can't get better at, which is he's 6'4", 215 pounds. He is a big receiver with reliable hands, tackle breaking ability. He uses his strength and his frame to his advantage. He can go up and get it. He can win those 50-50 balls. He can make spectacular catches. Those are all things that you love, especially in a young prospect like Coleman. And he's on an offense attached to an elite quarterback in Josh Allen who's going to make Legette better. I personally don't think elite receivers can make bad quarterbacks better. Like Malik Neighbors and Daniel Jones are going to struggle this year. But an elite quarterback attached to a young, raw, clearly naturally gifted, talented receiver, he can help elevate Coleman. I think Allen is going to absolutely do that. Josh Allen, you know he likes to force the ball into those tight windows, so if Keon can't separate as well as he should, I think Josh Allen's still going to throw him the ball. They're desperate for a big-bodied target. They don't have Gabe Davis or Stephon Diggs anymore, and then they have two smaller guys in Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakir. Yes, Dalton Kincaid is probably going to lead this team in targets and receptions, but don't be surprised when Coleman leads Buffalo in touchdowns. And with an ADP of round 9, Coleman is absolutely worth taking a chance on him. If you're going to draft any Bills receiver, it should be Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir. Nice guys, but they're nothing special. Coleman can be special. He can be a fantasy superstar down the stretch. All right, to my last receiver, and that's Brian Thomas Jr., who absolutely lit college football on fire his final year at LSU. 68 receptions, over 1,100 receiving yards, and 17 touchdowns. And that was all while playing alongside Malik Neighbors. Thomas is just an absolute freak of nature. He can fly with his 4.3 40 speed. He's a big-bodied receiver sitting at 6'3", 200 pounds. He's just a crazy athlete. He recorded a 9.97 ROS score at the Combine, ROS score, however you want to say it, which is one of the best in Combine history, and only 9 receivers posted a better score in the event's history. He actually reminds me a lot of Christian Watson with his size-speed combo. He's a deep threat, but he also has nice finesse for his size. Creative after the catch. He can win downfield, but he can also win in the short intermediate game, which is huge. And he's also really young, 21-year-old receiver with uncapped potential. And the only player really getting in Thomas's way is overrated, overpaid Gabe Davis, who couldn't really get it done in a Josh Allen-led offense. I think Thomas could carve out a significant role sooner rather than later. He could be one of those guys that the back half of the year he just catches absolute fire. And he's attached to a good quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, who really hasn't been able to put a full season together, whether it's just been bad coaching, bad offensive coordinator, dealt with a lot of injuries last year, wasn't on the same page as Calvin Ridley. I think Trevor Lawrence puts a monster season together this year on a Jaguar offense that really needs a downfield threat. Gabe Davis is fine, but he's not what Brian Thomas can give you. And this is a guy you're drafting in round 9, round 10, who I think has crazy upside at that cost. And I wouldn't be surprised if he leads this Jacksonville offense in touchdowns this year. I don't think Davis is that big of a touchdown threat. Christian Kirk is more of a possession guy along with Evan Ingram. I think Thomas and Lawrence could be really good in year 1. I think he's potentially the best receiver on Jacksonville's offense already. We didn't mention the obvious breakouts, Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. The market, the ADP, is already telling you that those 3 guys are going to go nuts this year. That's all I have for you guys today. I really appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed the video, if you felt like you got something from it, please like the video, subscribe, and most importantly, leave a comment. I want to help you guys win your league more than anything. I want to connect with you guys, build a relationship, and I'll see you in the next one.